Hi everybody, this is Ken Crater here with Vegan Movie Magick, where every show we talk about three different categories of veganism, movies, and magic. But those three categories break down into some different things, so let's go ahead and jump right into the show. Let's start with Oatly. Oatly had obviously a pretty bearish summer so far. It did really well upon its initial offering when it went public. I think it was $17 it started off at, don't quote me on that, and it ended up around 28 bucks. But it fell after that because it got overbought on RSI, and that's what happens. It got down here and it started to get where it might do a double bottom, and let's go over here and check this out. So Oatly stock falls more than 9% after short seller attacks company's practices. Basically what happened is Spruce Point Capital, a hedge fund, came out and they started saying bad things about Oatly. They continuously call it a food fad. Obviously, they're referring to veganism when they say that. We're not people with a serious conviction about something. We're just dumbasses in a food fad. That's what they're basically getting at. So they came out and said all this stuff. They said they're worried about their environmental practices. They don't think they'll ever achieve profitability. This is a company that's been around almost 30 years, and they're worth $12 billion. Watch out for FUD in the marketplace. FUD, fear, uncertainty, doubt. This is when companies or organizations will put out particular news to scare you so that you will do something that moves the market in the way that they are anticipating. That Oatly has completely said is false, has said nothing about what they have said is any relevance or any anchor in reality. But they are just a company, a hedge fund that's shorting their market with leverage. What happened was they scared a bunch of people into selling, and then they bet that they would. And that's what you're seeing here. And even with that happening, we didn't really fall all that far. Take that into consideration. It is a little bit lower. We're putting in a lower low. It looks like we're going to see a little bit more downside. To the right trader, this may be the exact time to buy. On lower time frames, you can see that we're actually doing kind of a rounded bottom here. But rounded bottoms can be funny. This is maybe the bottom for Oatly. I wouldn't say this is necessarily the bottom of the rounded bottom because this curve is pretty hard and then it kind of hooks into a right angle like boom. So I would watch this and just make sure it goes bullish personally. Your trading strategy is up to you, obviously. I'm just showing you some different stuff here. I'm not a financial advisor. Don't take this as financial advice. But I'm just showing you some stuff that's going on in the market, some news behind it, and you can make decisions on your own after doing your own research. Okay, going into Beyond Meat. Beyond has been strong. Obviously, they're in just about as many places as Impossible Burger, with the exception that they are in fact vegan because they don't do animal testing. I have actually reached out to Impossible, who has personally told me, this was on Facebook and it was a PR rep, but they have told me that they would use animal testing again. That's their policy, is to use animal testing on future products if it's necessary. If it's necessary. I don't know how it's necessary when Beyond doesn't use animal testing and they are fine. They're in Carl's Jr., at Walmart, you can get them at Target, you can get it at most retail grocery stores now. I like it. I think it's good. It's a favorite of a lot of people I know. I would say overall, Beyond's strong. It's looking very bullish, and we're actually getting to the point where it's about to hit into what should be and looks like it will be a double bottom. Stocks are a little bit weirder than crypto, so I'm a little bit better at reading crypto, but I do notice that the same patterns do emerge in both. If you're a trader, you obviously are going to do this based on your own research and your own decision making. You have your own ideas about things. I'm just showing you some stuff that I see. I'm not a financial advisor, again. This is a good company, I think. I think this is one that vegans should embrace because they don't do animal testing and they're also not GMO, which isn't necessarily a big deal to vegans, but I like that. I don't necessarily like the idea of modified foods. But that's a personal thing. It has nothing to do with veganism. I'm just saying that. I'm not trying to start an argument. I don't want beaten up over it. You know what's really good is their breakfast sausage links. I would not have... Their breakfast sausage patties, not nearly as good, in my opinion. They come in a box, they're loose, they get dry, you have to add a little bit of oil to them. The links are identical to the ones I grew up with as a kid. Like I don't know. I don't even know what company that was, but I remember the way they taste, and this is almost identical. I love Beyond Breakfast sausage. I wish I wouldn't eat an entire package of them in one sitting, but they are delicious. I do think this will hit this line right here at some point, if it, or at most hit this line, and it's going to test it possibly, and then we're going to see an upward movement again on Beyond. Kind of a double trend happening here. We got this trend happening where we are putting in higher highs, but we have this high over here, and this one didn't quite reach it, so technically we're in a wedge pattern too. One of these is going to win sometime. And if I had to guess, which I do because I don't know the future, my name is Mr. Ken, not Miss Chloe. Probably going to double bottom, but I don't know. We are in neutral zone from being relatively oversold. This over here is showing signs of an uptrend on the MACD on the daily candles. So each of these little candles are a day, in case you don't know what that means. But this looks bullish. The last vegan stock that I want to share with you guys is the Very Good Food Company. This is their website right here. This is some of the products that they sell. This looks like a rounded bottom to me, but also I've noticed that this pattern, typically when this is clean in here and it does kind of like a banana formation going down, they tend to break to the upside, I notice. It's basically a rounded bottom, but I notice a lot of rounded bottoms have a little bit more volatility. Occasionally when they do this like consolidation thing and then wedge up into here, I've noticed that they tend to go to the upside. This is something that you want to do some research on, and obviously I am not a financial advisor, so make sure that you take what I say with a grain of salt, do your own research, and make sure you make sound decisions with your money. Do not be crazy with your money. My only advice is that you do not invest any money that you need soon. So the market can go up and down, things can fluctuate, especially in crypto, for instance. If you put $500 for next month's rent down on Bitcoin and it drops, you're going to not like that. Don't go all in. There's a lot of ways to do this. Do research, learn strategies like how to buy the dip, how to scale into purchases and stuff like that so that you can cover your losses on dips if they dip further. Don't just throw your money at stuff because your buddy told you it was a cool thing. Don't go buy Doge because your coworker said that it's a hot thing to buy. Go do research, figure out who these companies are and what they do. This is the Very Good Food Company. I think this is going to break to the upside. The MACD is showing a bullish pattern. We're in neutral zone and leaning oversold more than overbought. At the very least, it seems that we're going to go to the top of this formation, to this pattern. It just seems like that's what's going to happen. But again, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm a guy who went to film school, and I'm a guy who went to art school, and I'm a guy who teaches Kung Fu and does martial arts. I am not a financial advisor. I am just interested in helping share some information that I have found with some other people who are interested in doing the right thing with their investments. Go vegan. I know I said I was only going to do 3 of the stock options for you guys today, but I wanted to throw Tesla in there. They recently made some strides to becoming vegan. PETA called them out, and they rose to the challenge. So you can get vegan cars now at Tesla. I don't know if any other car companies are doing that. Tesla definitely is, in addition to the fact that they are electric. A double hit there. You know, you got your environment and your animal friendly. That's what I'm talking about. We had a breakout of this wedge right here, and then we formed another smaller triangle. Whoops. And we broke out of it. On the 2-day, you can see, and it's kind of faint here. The purple is kind of hard to see behind the Bollinger Band. I'll move the Bollinger Band real quick. See this little line right here? That's the 80 moving simple. So that's kind of a cool thing that we're closing above that, and that it seems that we are bouncing off of it. That's a bullish sign. When Bollinger Bands narrow, the move is up. When they widen, the move is down. Rule of thumb. Not that I am a professional in any way, shape, or form. I just do this as a hobby. I like doing the charts. I like finding the patterns and stuff. I think it's fun. If it's something that helps you, great. If not, whatever. Don't listen to it. Don't care. Do your own research. This is Tesla. Go to the moon. I think it might. It's one of those things. It seems like it's in the cards. As part of the vegan segment, each show I want to go over some crypto analysis. I believe that crypto and veganism do coincide with one another. They are kind of one and the same philosophically, both two things that are designed to be movements that make the world a better place. I want to give a shout out to Lark Davis. This is my favorite cryptocurrency YouTuber, real down to earth guy. I like a lot of his insights. He does a good job at letting you know what's going on in the news. I highly recommend him. There's a lot of good ones, but with a lot of these, I think you're going to find you start to notice the politics. They all have a left or right lean, and they're trying to cram it down your throat. Lark doesn't do that. Crypto Revolution doesn't do that either. Lark provides a service that you can pay for to get better at this and to get help from him, and it's very, very cheap in comparison to these other places. Let's look at the DXY first. This is the US dollar index, and it's looking like we're about to pull to the upside, even though, well, that's a monthly. Okay, so that's going to take a while. On the daily, we're going to see some downside. So we could see some upswing. This from here, we're going to pull back a little bit, and then we're going to probably come back up to retest this falling line that's happening. This is a large falling formation. You can actually see it better on the dollar. And although it could have been a double bottom, this was a lower low, and we put in a lower high. So that's not good for the dollar overall. The dollar being inflated constantly and manipulated by governments and stuff is just honestly a sinking ship, and it's been that way since 1985. Total market cap in crypto. This is all the money that's coming into crypto. As you can see on the month, we're looking real good on the monthly. But looking on the daily to kind of get some idea what's happening right now, we're looking real good on the daily. That being said, we are in oversold territory despite the fact that the MACD is looking bullish, and so is the price action. You'll notice that the market does move in cycles, and despite the fact that it seems like it'll never get a pullback, they always do, even in bull markets. This is the beginning of that bearish trend, which turned out not to be a bull market, but just a big dip on a larger time frame that we weren't looking at, because in the moment, you're always looking at lower time frames. Everybody wants to watch the 4-hour when things are bad. Oh, what's going on? When what you should probably be looking at is the monthly or the weekly, so that you can see what's going to overall happen. And this is why we now have people saying that we're going to the moon, because if we get a measured move like that out of here, we're going to at least 3.4 trillion in the total market. Okay, so what's that mean for Bitcoin? Well, that would mean a measured move for Bitcoin from here would take Bitcoin to 82,000. Ethereum. Ethereum is hitting this resistance zone that it's been in. This is the end of the sandbox that it was trapped in. There's definitely going to be resistance here, so it's trying to punch through there. But in my opinion, things have gotten overbought rather, and this is starting to roll over a little bit. It would make sense that we pull down for a downtrend, but it probably won't be a substantial one. When Ethereum is bullish, its downtrends are not very substantial, but this is probably its worst throughout the bull market. And I could see us doing something similar to that, putting in a double bottom here. I could also see a cup and handle kind of thing, an ugly cup and handle, because this cup is kind of ugly. But I could definitely see a handle forming here and us having a cup and handle formation up here. Doge, rounded bottom, broke to the upside. That's a lot of the market, to be honest, though. So don't let things fool you, and always watch the volume, because if the volume isn't coming in, it's market manipulation. Aave, this is a good example of what could be happening in the market in general. So Aave broke down below the 200 moving average and put in a lower low, but we got a big bounce, put in a higher high, and then we got a pullback that was a higher low. Now, this next pullback was important because this first pump got us over the 50 moving average, the 50 moving symbol, but we've crashed back down, found a higher high or higher low after we hit this support here and bounced over the 200 moving symbol, and really all the other ones as well. But the fact that we started closing candle bodies above this 200 moving symbol on Aave is very bullish. Even if we crash, the likelihood that we won't come back up is low in the market. This, I would say, is the move, and there's going to be a pullback from it. But that's my guess, and I'm not a professional or anything anything. I'm just letting you know what I think. Let's look at Link real quick. Link's looking real strong, very similar. There was a little bit more volume coming in on Link. Link has been popular, and Link is a popular coin in the DeFi market, so I like Link a lot. Link's something I regularly trade. Uniswap's another one. Also very, very, very strong right now. We really need to get above this line and start putting in some candles over this. But that cup and handle formation could actually be what causes this to happen. We get this little cup, we break out, and then once we get here, it goes up parabolically. If you're interested in cryptocurrency and you're vegan, I have a group on Facebook called Crypto Trading Vegans. I have the announcements tab filled with some of my favorite YouTube videos that I've selected for helping out with the market and stuff like that, and helping you understand the market and the space of cryptocurrency. Just basic tutorials and stuff. For the movie portion of the show today, we're going to be talking about Friday the 13th, because today is Friday the 13th. Real quick though, I want to kind of go over noir versus horror with you. There are really only three genres in film: noir, horror, and science fiction. Pretty much every film that you can think of is going to fall into one of these categories. Even the romantic comedies. They're typically always going to have some kind of backdrop of crime. If there's no supernatural element and there's no element of like aliens or science, like gadgetry or something like that. Batman's a good example of science fiction that's very down to earth because his devices. However, the stuff that you see in the movies and in the comics doesn't exist. That makes it science fiction. Horror has to have an element of the supernatural. This is an important thing that I think is lost on a lot of people who are into film, because they want to look at anything that's horrible like horror. That's just not the way it is. A good example, I think, is the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. In the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, you have a completely down-to-earth, cannibalistic and psychotic, but down-to-earth situation. Wait a minute. Kenny. Cannibals are horror. If you look up the genre for horror, you will see cannibals are listed. I just don't consider it because it's nothing supernatural about it. It's the only thing on the list that will be not supernatural. And it's because it's looked at as if they are doing something to evoke a demon or something like that, typically in film, and people consider that intent to be somewhat supernatural, I guess. I don't buy it. I don't like it. There's cannibals that are in the world existing today. I'm not 100% sure how it qualifies as horror when it's something that exists in our real world as a genre. Now, is it horror in our real world? Yeah. In Friday the 13th, you have a very good system of this is noir happening throughout the entire film. We'll get back to that. The movie starts and you got some very cool motifs that go on to become iconic motifs. Some of them were actually kind of used already in a couple respects. You got the innocent girl. She shows up to town. She meets these locals. The locals are weird, don't really help much. The way that they're acting puts her off, so obviously any warnings that she gets out of them, she ignores. This ultimately causes her to end up going to Camp Crystal Lake anyway. She is then murdered. This is a part of the movie I also am a little bit weird about, because throughout the whole movie, it fits a very particular pattern. But this moment does not, because this girl didn't actually do anything at the camp. She never interacted with anybody. The only thing she was doing was going to a job. There was no real reason to kill her yet. The hook scene kind of sets up the entire philosophy behind the film. You have two counselors. They do something they're not supposed to do, and what happens? They get killed. Then the next scene is like a direct contrast to this, where it's like there's no rhyme or reason to this. This person didn't deserve this. It's kind of needed because we actually in this story have two thematic characters that if you didn't kill one of them, they wouldn't have worked out for the long term, because we have the reluctant hero that's in the film, and that's the girl that ends up getting to the end of the movie. Now, the counselor that was on there, there was nothing reluctant about her. She even knows. She still decides that she's going to this place. She still goes. She still decides that she's going to this place. Once we're there and we meet the guy who's obsessed with getting the place put together for some unknown reason, we don't really know why, but he's really, really ardent about getting that place running, and he's putting everybody to work. The person who is late, she comes and she actually doesn't even want to be there. I will say something serious about this movie that I don't like. The original script did not call for this. There's a scene in which one of the counselors encounters a snake, and it's in her cabin. Now, this actually happened to the director, who at the time was out there and they were shooting and stuff, and a snake got into his cabin, and it inspired him to write this scene. I really wish he wouldn't have. This doesn't need to be in the movie, and really it kind of just seals the counselors getting murdered, because you're just like, this is ridiculous. But they all just chop this snake up in pieces pretty much with this machete. Well, it's one guy, but they're all rooting him on. And it's just a bull snake. It's a completely harmless snake that's in this room that they could have shoot out with a broom. And instead they chop its head off and then chop it again and then make jokes about it. And there's a lot of other people that would probably say that's part of the genius of this movie, that there's something so screwed up in this movie. But I don't think anything should be killed for art's sake. There shouldn't be cruelty that is required in order for art to exist. That doesn't make any sense to me. That seems like something people tell themselves. So the first homage that I really think is the most important here, I'm going to wait till the end. The homage that fits right now is the part where it kind of connects the last homage, which is really an important one. But the first one leads into that is the moment where Mrs. Voorhees has the axe and she's pounding through the door. She gets her the spot open so she can stick her head in there like that and give you the whole, Jack from The Shining bit. And only this time it's not psycho dad, it's psycho mom. And that's not where we thought this movie was going when we sat down and started eating the popcorn. Which I really wish I could have been there back in 1980 to see this movie for the first time and then have that be like, oh, it's a mom? That mom's killing everybody for a dead little boy? Kind of start rooting for her on some level, but then she really kind of stops making sense after a while. Then she starts talking to her son in her head. Up until here, it's been normal noir, and it is kind of normal noir now. She's nuts. That's a normal part of being crazy, a part of being a psycho killer. Psycho. He's crazy. Once it's established that this is our killer, this mom, then we have this new dynamic between the surviving counselor, the young girl, and this older woman who is also a surviving counselor, so to speak. So now we have this battle between old and young that commences, and it gets pretty ugly, quite frankly. It's a pretty brutal scene where there's just two going at each other for a while. Most of it's her running away, but then she takes on the offensive, obviously, because that's how Mrs. Voorhees ends up without a head. After she kills her, though, then we have this whole reluctant camper thing, because she was the one that didn't want to be there. She was the one that was trying to get out and wasn't sure if she wanted to stay. That reluctant hero thing is very important. And if we wouldn't have gotten rid of the innocent girl at the beginning of the movie, it wouldn't have quite made sense to have this reluctant camper get to the end, because it would have made more sense for the innocent person that didn't deserve things to get there. They could have had her actually in the camp scene before any of that happened, and then somebody could have just been like, you know what, narratively, this isn't going to add up, it just isn't going to work, because we're going to get to the end where we have two people and we're not sure who to kill. So they killed the innocent girl right at the beginning of the movie. They're creating a situation where we solidify the evil of the villain even before we ever meet them. If a bad guy kills an animal or a cat or something, it's just like, oh, you went from being a bad guy to being my enemy. You're somebody that's really making me sick. A good example is American Psycho. He goes up to a bum, he starts killing this bum. You're just like, whatever. But then he kills his dog, and you're like, stop. If you want to be there to hurt him, and there's just something that's off in a movie when you see an animal die, it triggers something on a different level, because the animal didn't do anything at all. I don't know who that bum is. For all I know, that bum just stabbed somebody in another alley and went to this one to take a nap. I have no idea. But that dog didn't do anything to anybody that wasn't trained. When we kill something innocent in a movie, it solidifies that the thing that did it is not good. Once we get to the end and Mrs. Voorhees is flipping out, there's that moment where we kind of start to feel sorry for her. We remember that innocent girl, and then we don't care. Despite the fact that Mrs. Voorhees killing that innocent girl doesn't really fit her MO as a psychopath in the narrative, it works better for the story that we kill her in the beginning of the movie, and then that way we don't have to have two characters at the end of the movie that we feel are both altruistic enough to win, and as such end up tag teaming Mrs. Voorhees 2-on-1. It's not as heroic, it's not as iconic, And it's not as eventful when Mrs. Voorhees gets decapitated, because she gets decapitated by the underdog. That's what you need in a movie like this, when you have a villain that's kind of, when your first sight is like, if Lou Ferrigno was at the camp, would this be a problem at this point? It's not the case. She's very clever the way that she kills everybody. She gets anybody that could overpower her out of the way first, for the most part, and then she goes after this weak girl at the end, which kind of also seems unfitting, but she definitely has a particular thing in mind that she's doing. No one knows exactly what it is. She's got a dead body in the Jeep. Don't know where she's taking it. She's definitely having fun with this counselor when she encounters her at the end of the movie. Leading up to the end of the movie, I'm just so lost on this still today. Why does this counselor, after she decapitates Mrs. Voorhees, why does she go get into a boat and float onto the middle of the lake and dangle her arm in the water? What sense does that make? Just push the dead body out of the Jeep, get the girl's keys, and get out of there. I mean, the only thing that makes sense is if you're in like a fugue state and you do something that you don't know you do. That makes sense there a little bit, maybe if I think of it from that perspective. But ordinarily, I would say, if I just got done surviving a psychopath and I won, I'm going to the police now. I'm going to take that car, whatever car I can. I got to get out of here. I don't want to be here anymore. I'm definitely not going to go float into the middle of the lake. Obviously, without this, we couldn't have Jason jump out of the water and attack her, and then her wake up in the hospital for a split second, making us think that this was a dream, which is a common motif of noir. A dream that happens within this criminal setting that is a little bit strange. Another day. In this situation, she immediately comes to. She asks where Jason was. They say when they pulled her out of the water, there was nobody else, and that they thought she was dead. This is when the horror genre wins. This is the moment that we acknowledge that Jason, the boy, actually pulled her into the water. The vision that she sees in the dream wasn't a vision at all. That's what really happened. And when she wakes up, she simply recalls it. We obviously have the foresight to know that there are other movies coming. Jason was there. But the one thing that we do know for sure is that Jason wasn't alive. Jason is killed when he drowns in the lake. This event causes his mother to lose her mind. If he lived like ordinarily lived, that situation, he would have got out and he would have went home. That's what people, when they're done swimming, do. That's not what happened. He died. And when he died, the traumatic event of the death, the resentment of the counselors who weren't doing what they were supposed to do, led to some kind of demonic thing happening, and some kind of evil supernatural element took over and kind of gave his body life when it was dead. But it doesn't at first. What Friday the 13th is illustrating that whatever happened to Jason that caused him to be the way he is after he drowns gives him the ability to possess people. Whatever that is that merges with his soul or whatever. What's happening in Friday the 13th is his mom is actually really listening to him and doing what he says. When she's hearing Jason's voice in her head, Jason is actually speaking with her. There's actually something, it might not be Jason, it probably isn't Jason, to be honest. It's probably some dark thing that came about throughout Jason's pain that was drawn to him, kind of like something from the other dimension in Twin Peaks, something that's drawn toward pain and suffering that just kind of attached itself to him. Whatever it is, obviously, we know going forward gives his body the ability to continue to live even though it's dead, and it grows even though it's rotting. It's a disgusting process. But we know that's what's causing that, moving forward, obviously. But we don't learn that stuff till 2 or 3, and then 4 and 5, and then it gets weird. Then it gets real weird. But at that point, we know it's something supernatural. In this film, it was just kind of very subtle how the supernatural element worked. Now, how is that an homage to The Shining? This is how. In The Shining, you have this very definitive moment. This is the moment that I was referring to when horror wins. This is the homage to The Shining that I was earlier referencing that I said I'd come back to. So in The Shining, you have a perfectly grounded noir film. Crime, yes, we see some ghosts and stuff, but nothing suggests that anything you see in that movie isn't something that could be in somebody's head. Cabin fever playing games with you when you're isolated and stuff like that. Jack's character is going through some stuff because he's alone, he's trying to write, blah, blah, blah. We know that they're going through similar things because they're isolated with Jack. Up until the very specific moment in The Shining when he asks Mr. Grady to open up the door to the pantry to let him out after Shelley Duvall knocked him out with a bat and then drug him in there. It's a noir film. But when the ghost actually reaches out and touches the doorknob and unlocks the door for him, that's a whole other world we're in now. We are in a world where we as the viewer now know no one else could have done that. That is the moment this became a horror film, a real supernatural element. And that supernatural element is trying to kill the people in the home. And then things get real weird. That's the moment that's very similar to the moment Jason jumps out of the water and grabs the girl. When he jumps out of the water and grabs her, that's letting us know that was him. We know for a fact it wasn't a dream because moving forward, Jason looks a certain way that she is never told he looks like. Jason has deformities and stuff from an unknown scenario. His head's all messed up and stuff as a little boy, which is probably why the camp counselors were ignoring him. They were treating him like he was less than a human because they felt he was. That's kind of the real thing that's going on in Friday the 13th. This little boy was basically treated like he wasn't a human being. As such, this event took place. So it's definitely not a innocence being slaughtered the whole time thing. It's kind of like innocence was slaughtered before the movie started. Some iconic music that continues throughout the entire narrative and of all the films in the franchise, which is kind of a really neat touch, considering that it was just so iconic for something so simple. But it's interesting how in a movie where something's supposed to be kind of scary, a simple sound like that can actually be very useful. I'm reminded of a movie that has a tune that goes something like this. Bum, 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 bum. You know the movie. It's called Jaws. Well, that simple tune haunted people. People know that tune. People get in pools and they do the thing and they put on the shark fin and they make the noise. It's just one of those things. I don't know how many times I've heard people go, shh, 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 if you're out in the woods camping. It's just a common thing. And it's like something so simple that somebody came up with. They put in there and it just fits so well. It may have been just somebody making that noise. And somebody was like, that sounds cool. You should put that in the movie. And then the rest is like history, which I think is kind of cool. How little things like that. That's, for me, that's what the art is in a film, is something like that, where you use a simple sound or something to create this entire effect, not going and finding an innocent bull snake and chopping its head off. Not even necessary. Just my opinion. But there it is. Friday the 13th. Definitely a horror film. If you like this review and you want some more, let me know. If you got some other films that you would like to hear me review or talk about, I'm sure they'll be better than this one. This is the first one, and you know I've never really done this before, so I did my best for now. We're going to get better, I think, as the show goes on, and I hope to get a better grasp on making these videos. It's kind of a neat one, and I wanted to make sure I was rushing this when I was going to start the show later in the fall, but I was like, oh man, it's Friday the 13th. That'd be a good day to start the first show, so let's have the first one be on Friday the 13th. So happy Friday the 13th, and go see Friday the 13th. I want to start the magic segment with Kung Fu, and I'll probably be doing that each show that we have. So without further ado, I want to go right back into Friday the 13th, as it's Friday the 13th. And let's discuss some sword play technique. And obviously most people don't have swords laying around their house. Most. But people do have machetes. Machetes are pretty common. Got one sitting right here. It's a good one I use for camping. It's kind of off to the side. It's good to have that handy nearby. But those are pretty common. In martial arts, we typically train to use weapons that are designed to be things you can find pretty commonly. Machete, things to chop brush with and stuff like that can be found in the garage or the shed or something like that. So that's a good thing to teach broadsword, which would be the kung fu thing that would apply to this the most. But moving right along, I want to get right into this. Let's look at her technique moving forward on this attack. Okay, so let's analyze this. So she takes this, she looks at him, she gives him a good threat, and then she pulls her elbow in as she hits him like this. See how she's doing with her arm when she comes in? She doesn't have any leverage because her arm is too small. And instead of taking a step back so that she could actually get a good piece of him, she doesn't. And there's not enough distance between them for her to be effective with this weapon on him. And it obviously hits the floor. Now, once it hits the floor, that's when Tommy gets it. Now, we won't go into the transformation that Tommy's had throughout this movie, where he just went upstairs and shaved his head because Tommy's going full psycho on us, and he's like a little boy. But Jason Voorhees is trying to kill his family and friends, so naturally Tommy's going to go somewhere else. And in that process, that's when we get better technique. Before we get that more technique. So let's just look at that. So before we get better technique from Tommy, we actually get some more poor technique from his mom. Let's look at that real quick. There we go. Two-handed. Back to one-handed. And where's the follow-through? The mask comes off. That was barely a trouble for Jason. Okay. So, what now? Well, let's wait. Grip. Wait for a spot. Ooh. Let's watch that again. Oh! Boom! Okay, now you may not have a sword handy at home, but let me show you the distinct difference between Tommy's attack versus her attack. So, when Tommy hits him, he hits him with this part of the sword. Just like you would hit a baseball with a baseball bat, you're going to look for that sweet spot on the bat. The sword has the same sweet spot. And when Tommy hits him, it's a double-handed follow-through. And naturally, he's not that strong, but when you're not that strong, you got to really put that power behind it in order to get through the skull. And Jason's got a particularly thick skull. He's a big dude. So Tommy did quite well there. Let's move on. And then keeps his eyes on him. Tommy never takes his eyes off. Lets him back up. Yeah. We have this moment of embrace because Tommy just saved the day. But then there's a wiggle of the fingers. No hesitation whatsoever. Pushes her away. Starts chopping this guy into oblivion. Okay, so Tommy obviously comes out on top in this instance. Jason's killed by a kid who uses some trickery on him as well, psychologically, by shaving his head to look more like Jason looked when he was a little boy. That's one angle of Kung Fu. Let's look at a more traditional Kung Fu in Friday the 13th. Grown-up Tommy Jarvis. So this is later on in the film franchise when that little boy that just slashed on Jason for a little while, screaming die, he grows up a little bit and he's still got some PTSD from that situation. He's been in and out of mental institutions, and they put him in this halfway home with this group of campers. This guy comes in that's kind of the cocky type of character that's in your face, jock. He comes in, and he actually scares the crap out of everybody with this wolf mask. This is the aftermath of it. Tommy, as you see, standing there with a rather irritated look on his face.
Relax, Chief. What's wrong? No sense of humor? Can't you take a joke?
Now, let's stop. I'm just going to throw this out there. If somebody touched their tongue, their hand, and then walked up to me and started making contact with me, I would not be enthusiastic. I want to analyze Tommy's posture as this is happening. I want you to watch the first hit. Well, you're going to see two technically, and you're probably actually seeing the first one twice because it's different camera angles. So the first one, he's relaxed, and you'll notice that when you see it from the different angles. I believe the first hit is the same one twice. So you're going to see two, and it's the same one from different angles. Watch.
Thanks, Chief.
Right there.
What's wrong? No
That's the same hit. So those two hits were the same hit. That's a cinematic technique. Okay? And you can tell,
no sense of humor?
because you see how he reacts to the second one. He lets himself yield a little bit, getting hit there, and then the second one, no, there's no going. Like, he is now in a bit of a grudge situation with this guy, and he pushes back a little bit. Now, at this point, we know that Tommy is mentally dispossessed due to his childhood situation with Jason Voorhees. But what we don't know is that while he's been in and out of mental institutions over so many years, he's obviously received some martial arts training. And this guy is about to find out the hard way that that is the case.
Good joke?
So again, here's the pushback. He's now giving resistance with his pushing out on his chest to give this guy resistance.
Can't you take a joke?
Then that second one is, I already told you I wasn't interested in this. And it leads into... Oh! Nice! Oh my goodness! Oh my goodness! Relentlessness, relentlessness. Find Zen, dude. Find your Zen. Find your Zen. There we go. So let's go back and watch that again. Okay, so we're going to notice three distinct shots here. The first shot, picking up the actor. Actor picking up an actor. Cut. Now we have a stunt double. Cut. Now we're back to the actor. Movie magic. This is John Shepard right here. He's older. He's not a martial artist or anything in real life. This was somebody who received training from a stuntman. And that stuntman was Eddie Matthews. John Shepard actually came to Texas. This is an interview with him from back in the day. And he actually illustrates that the stuntman was able to do a handstand on his shoulders. John Shepard's shoulders. So the stuntman would get up on his shoulders and do a handstand in the middle of this move to make it look like Tommy was really strong. But this stuntman's totally carrying him. Who is this stuntman? This was his first movie, Friday the 13th, the final chapter. Then he goes on to do Ferris Bueller's Day Off and Batman. And after that, we see one of the most successful stuntman careers of all time. So, a little shout out to the very successful stuntman. Stuntmen don't really get too many shout outs. Eddie Matthews, who's been working in the industry for ever now. He's also on the Jurassic World franchise and stuff. Worked on Batman and stuff, and that's what really put him over the edge is when he started working on the Batman sets and stuff like that. But that is actually who is responsible for the magic of this kung fu scene, is this guy who probably received some martial artist training and stuff like that, amongst other stunt training, was helping this actor pull off this. Moving along, though, Tommy gets into another interaction, and this is a little bit more fun. Okay, so let's just watch.
You hear me? I said, you hearing me?
Let's back up a little bit so you can see.
Hear me?
This guy is really just
I was gonna chop you up into itty bitty
very
pieces, my
antagonistic personality, this
friend.
man.
Hear me? I said, are you
Tommy
hearing me?
trying to be calm, but not walking away. Probably
I
should.
said, are you hearing me?
Not a good idea. Oh! Nice! Let's look at that again. Boom. Boom! It's like some drunken fist. That's nice. That's what I'm talking about. I want to just hook. Bam! Back fist. Nice. Where are we going from here? Oh, brain. Oh, kidney shot. Gee, many Christmas. Now, Tommy should probably be walking away. But so should that guy. Oh. Find your zen, Tommy. Just kind of some humorous kung fu nods here because we definitely have some stuntman stuff and some real martial arts taking place in these movies that are taught to these actors by the stuntmen who probably have martial arts sprinkled from all over the place in the various trainings that they go through to do their job. This is just a very cool example from Friday the 13th. I think this is 5. Yeah, this is 5. 6 goes into another Tommy Jarvis, who's actually played by a different actor, and in my opinion, he has the right look of an 80s horror teen, but he doesn't in any way encapsulate what is Tommy Jarvis that has been established up to that point. He just seems like he's normal again. He's regular old Tommy Jarvis now. I'm not a big fan of the latter Tommy Jarvis in comparison to this Tommy Jarvis, and of course Corey Feldman's Tommy Jarvis, which is great. That will conclude the Kung Fu portion of the show. Each show is going to end with a segment that focuses on the supernatural or the unknown, kind of unsolved mystery stuff. But for this particular episode, because it's Friday the 13th and this is the first ever episode, I wanted to give a special shout out to John Ballen, or his show Mr. Ballen. He actually started on TikTok, and he's a former Navy SEAL that started doing stories about the military, but then transitioned to more strange, dark, and mysterious stuff, as that's kind of what the demand was for, and that's just what he liked telling. So I really like his show. He's actually the reason I'm wearing the backwards hat, though the origin of my hat is special. You either understand what it is or you don't. Those who get it, get it. Those who don't, well, you're just not in the club. But the reason it's backwards is because his is backwards, and he's the reason that I decided to start a show on YouTube, because I liked his so much. Now, today I just want to kind of focus on this show of his right here. This is my favorite episode. This is Top 3 Scariest True Stories, Spooky Stories Part 2, and the last segment of this is called Bell's Canyon. This was the one that was my favorite of all the stuff. I'm just going to let him talk for a little bit to give you an understanding of about how he is in his stories and on his YouTube shows. So you can get an idea of who Mr. Ballen is a little bit here.
Despite living in one of the biggest cities in the world, Matt was actually a very competent outdoorsman. And so for this trip, he decided he would stay way off any trail, deep in the backcountry in random locations. On the first night, he found a nice clearing in the trees, and so he set up his campsite there. He ate some food over his fire, he pitched his tent, climbed inside, and within a few minutes, he was fast asleep. Several hours later, Matt woke up to some strange sounds coming from outside of his tent. It sounded like a couple of animals, or maybe one animal, moving around right outside. And so after a while of just hearing this constant sound, he rolled over and he barely unzipped his tent flap just to look out and see if he could see whatever animal it was. And what he saw shocked him. There was a man sitting in front of his fire pit. There was no fire in his fire pit. And the guy was just sitting there with his hands on his knees, looking straight down, and periodically he would just kick his feet in the ashes of the fire pit. And Matt didn't even know what to do, so he's just looking at him through this little tiny gap in his tent. And this man all of a sudden looks up directly at Matt and makes eye contact with him.
That's where I'll end it. You guys can go check out Mr. Ballen's show. Again, this is the Bell's Canyon portion of the Top 3 Scariest True Stories, Spooky Stories, Part 2. Again, John Ballen, I'm a big fan, and thanks for your shows. Keep making more of. We like them. For the magic portion of the magic segment, I'm going to focus on a book. The book I'm going to share with you today is called The Enochian Workbook. There we go. Let you get a good look at it. It's a book that I've been enjoying. I'm going to read you a little bit from the beginning of it. Practical magic is performed with the aid of ordinary, everyday implements. It is concerned with the things of the earth and the harmony of nature, and is considered to be the magic of the common people. High magic, on the other hand, has long been considered the prerogative of the affluent and the learned. Some aspects of it certainly call for items expensive to procure and for knowledge of ancient languages and tongues, though that is not true of all magic that's high magic. There was a time when, to practice high magic, it was necessary to apprentice oneself to a master magician or mage and to spend many years studying and practicing. High magic is the transformation of the self to the higher self. Some aspects of it also consist of rites designed to conjure spirits or entities capable of doing one's bidding. Motive is the driving force of these magics and is critical for success. I don't recommend that you try to evoke anything to do your bidding. In recent years, there has been a change from the traditional thoughts regarding high magic. The average intelligence today is vastly superior to that of 4 or 5 centuries ago. Minds attuned to the computers are finding a fascination with the mechanics of high magical conjurations. This is especially true of the mechanics of the Enochian magic. The Llewellyn High Magic series has taken the place of the mage, the master magician who would teach the apprentice magic, is simply making happen what one desires to happen. As Aleister Crowley put it, magic is the science and art of causing change to occur in conformity with will. The Llewellyn High Magic series shows how to effect that change and details the steps necessary to cause it. Magic is a tool. High magic is a potent tool. Learn to use it. Learn to put it to work to improve your life. This series will help you do just that. So again, the Enochian Workbook. That concludes today's show, everybody. I hope you guys enjoyed it. My name's Ken Crater, and this has been Vegan Movie Magic. I hope to see you guys next time. If you haven't done so already, please do me a favor and smash that like button for me. Have a good day. See you guys next time.